So let us begin. So if you remember what we have discussed so far, we were discussing loops in the last class, Friday, and we had looked at an example of one kind of loop, that is loop statement. And I was also showing you what is the difference between loop, while, and repeat. So what we will do, we will write one query each on while and repeat because we have not covered it. Once we do that, we'll go and look at stored procedures. Okay, cool. Let's just start. Hmm. Good. So loops we already discussed anyway. So what is the difference between this? If you see loop, repeat, and while statement, I think we had done it in Paint last time. No, should we open? Yeah, it's here. So we saw what is the difference between the types. So one we had a loop, and the other one is repeat, and the other one is while. Okay. So the difference being, so in loop, you don't have any statement condition at all. By default, they don't give you a condition saying if so and so come out. So here what we had to do, we had to write our own statement to come out or go in. How we were doing that? So we were doing a if condition, and whenever this if condition was failing, we were leaving the loop. Okay, so if you see that. Okay, but then in repeat and while, right? So we have a specific condition which is there. Like for example, in repeat, you see there is this keyword called until. So only as long as this until is, how will it repeat? As long as this until is false, right? It will keep going. Okay. So whenever this evaluates to true, it will come out. This is for repeat condition, and then while condition. The difference is as long as this is true. Okay. So as long as the income is less than or equal to 3,000, this will keep repeating again and again, again and again. Okay. Rest everything is same. So you have end loop. Similarly, you'll have end while here. And then you have a return statement, you will have a return statement. Everything else remains same. The only thing that changes is repeat and while have a condition inbuilt in them, whereas loop doesn't have a condition inbuilt in them. Okay. So if you just take an example and show, same thing. So what are we doing? If I show it to you, so we are initially changing the delimiter. We have a function called create income. We take an input value integer, and then now this label is where the magic happens. So as long, okay, this is we're looking at while loop. As long as this is true, do this following line. Okay, whatever is the whatever the statement inside this, those are executed. And once this while condition fails, it will end automatically. End while label. Okay, and then return income. So if we run this code, if we create this function and run code, just say, okay, so this function has been created. You can see the green thing. So now if I do select calc income, and let's say I do 1,000. We remember, right? If you do anything less than what do you say? Starting value, income plus starting, right? So here it is different. So anything which is, if it equals 1,000 or if it slightly becomes more than 1,000, we come out. So let's say if I give 1,000, it should go till 3,000 and come out. So answer should be 3,000 only. Or 4,000. 1 second. See why. If income is less than, okay, sorry, if it is less than or equal to 3,000, we'll keep going. And the moment it becomes 4,000, will come out. Okay. So if we had to trace this function, let's just try tracing it. Okay. Okay. So how would we trace this function? Trace or try them, one and the same thing. So starting value, initially starting value kitna diya tha humne? We have given 1,000. Okay. And then income is initially what? 0. Okay. So then we come inside this while condition. So is income less than 3,000? Correct. Income is 0. So 0 is less than 3,000. So what we do? We run this line. Self income is equal to income plus starting value. Starting value 1,000, income 0. So what happens? Income becomes 1,000. Then again we go back, end while. So while loop is ended, again we go back until we'll keep doing this as long. We'll not go to end. We'll still be in income only. We'll keep doing this as long as this condition is true. So income is 1000 now. Is 1000 less than or equal to 3000? True. So what we do, we come again and run this query. Set income is equal to income plus starting value. So income becomes 2000. Okay. And then again we go back. Is 2000 less than or equal to 3000? Yes. So again we do set income is income plus starting value. So income becomes 3000. Okay. Then we do is 3000 less than or equal to 3000? Yes. 3000 is less than or equal to 3000. True. So then what we will do, we will again increase the income. So now income becomes 4000. Okay. So when the income is 4000, we come here again to the same place. Is income less than or equal to 3000? Is 4000 less than or equal to 3000? No, it is false. So then we come out. How do we come out? We come out of this end while function and we do return income. What is the final value when we do return income? It is 4000. So that is why 4000 is getting printed. Okay. So let us say if I had 100 instead of what do you say? 100 instead of 1000. What will the answer be that time? It should be 3100. Why? So we'll keep incrementing as long as it is less than 3000. So the next value becomes 3000 plus 100, 3100. So whenever it is 3100, this while condition fails. Okay. So while condition fails, that is why we come out and then we return the income. So it will be 3100. What if, let's say I written something more than 3000 already? If I say 3001, then what happens? It should just return me 3001. Okay, because initially income is 0. So if this condition is true, so I come inside, income becomes income plus starting value. Income becomes 3001. So the moment the value is 3001, when I go back again and see is income less than or equal to 3000? Yes, it is what? It is not. It is not less than or equal to 3000. So I come out saying it has the while condition has failed. So I come out and will return 3001. Okay. This is while. So the only difference in repeat will be, so repeat comes here. The condition is not here. Repeat, what is it? It's start or set. So repeat may, we have repeat. Okay, it is nothing and end repeat. The difference is until. Here it becomes end repeat. यहाँ पे नीचे do चला जाएगा and then you have a until condition. So until the value is false, right? Until this condition is false, it will keep going. Let's say I want to keep going as long as income is less than or income is greater than 4000. So as long as this is false, we'll keep going. So the moment income becomes greater than or equal, so the moment income becomes 4000, we'll come out. Okay. Until spelling कुछ गलत है, until income. Okay, there is no semicolon. Okay. So you see, what did I do? I only changed few things. What are the things that I've changed? The condition went from while here to until this place. Okay. So now if I run this, the function name is same. Let's just to calculate income 2. I say enter. Should have created this function. Okay. Calc income 2 is created. Calc income to 3000. If I do 3001, no, it should go to 3001 plus 3001. That is 6002. Right? Why 6002? Because if you were to do a driving for this, check this much. So initially, the starting value is what? Starting value is 3001. Call it SC. Then income is 0. So first we update the value. So here you see the difference, right? So the difference is first the value is updated, then we go and check. Okay. So what is the value first? The value is the income is 0 initially, so income becomes 3001. Then we check, is income greater than or equal to, is this condition true? Income is greater than or equal to 4000? No, it is false. So if it is false, continue. So again, what do? Income becomes income plus starting value. That is 3001 plus 3001. So it goes to 6002. Okay, so since it has gone to 6002, now when we check if income is greater than or equal to 4000, it is true. So whenever this condition becomes true, we will come out of the repeat statement. Okay, and then we return the value. That is what is 6002. So if you see, the difference between while and repeat is in while, as long as this condition is false, right? As long as this condition is true, we keep repeating. Okay. But in repeat, as long as this condition is false, we keep repeating. Okay. So in repeat, until this becomes true, until this is false, we keep repeating. In while, until this is true, we keep repeating. Okay. And also there can be case where there are two types of loops. Okay. They're called one is entry control loop and the other is exit control loop. Entry control loop is like this. So let us say you go to a movie theater. So in movie theater, they take your tickets in the beginning only, right? They check your tickets in the beginning and then they let you enter inside the movie theater, right? So that is called like entry control loop. So where you are doing checking before beginning all the operations, before starting anything. Exit control loop will be like, so you go to a movie theater, at the end of the movie, they check your tickets, whether you have ticket or no. Okay. So that kind of a loop is called exit control loop. So when do we use entry control loop? So when if you don't want to execute even once, some statement, if you don't want to even execute it once, right, then we use entry control loop. Because even in the first time only, if the condition fails, you'll not execute once also. But exit control loop, what happens? The code is executed at least once. After executing it once, then we check if it is if the condition is failing or passing. Based on that, we'll take a decision. So if you see in while statement, what is happening? We are checking the condition first only and then doing all set, whatever is the set of commands that you want to execute. Okay, so while is entry control loop here. Whereas repeat, if you see, sorry, we are doing all the conditions first. No, we are doing all the statements first. After that, we are checking if it is true or false. Okay, so here in this case, if it is false. So this is what is happening here. This is exit control loop. Okay, so that is the difference between another difference between repeat and while. Next, we will go to see about stored procedures. So far, we had seen functions, right? So we saw stored functions. If you look at the examples before, so in functions, we would do create function, and then we had the name of the function, and then we had some parameters. We used to give their definition and all there only, right? So what we couldn't do with function was we couldn't write a select statement inside a function. Select start from, let's say, uh, use company. If I do select if I do select start from Amazon inside a company, let's start from Amazon. So if I do this shows, right? But I cannot write this query inside a function. So what was the condition? The condition with function was that you can only return one value. You can't return tables and all. You can't do insert, update, delete commands inside the function. Okay, so all of that was not possible. So if you want to do all of that, there is another kind of so these functions and procedures, they're all called as routines. Okay, so function is a kind of a routine and procedure is also kind of a routine. So when do we use procedure? So when we want to do any data manipulation commands, like you want to do an insert, you want to do an update, you want to do a delete, or you can also do a select. So if you want to do any of those kind of calls, so you use procedure. Okay, so so again, procedures are it's like a block of code. It is a pre-compiled statement that is used in database, and then so the state the what do you say? The syntax of procedures is slightly different from functions. We'll look at what is the syntax for that. And then, so these procedures can be run as part of triggers, as part, they can be run in other applications also. Okay. So, and also if you want to run multiple SQL statements and all, they can be grouped into one single stored procedure and run. So why do we need stored procedures? Because very similar to why we needed functions. They are a bunch of statements which are executed once only. You don't have to rewrite it again and again. But the also advantage with stored procedures is you can run data manipulation languages. Okay. And also other thing with using stored procedures is, so let us say you had an application. Okay. So this is the application. Let's say I'll call it app. Okay. And you had a database here. So if you wanted to send some query to the database, let's say the query was 20 lines, you are doing select star. So you do a select command, and then you do a from, and then you do a where, and the where is very, very big. Let's say where is 20 lines of where condition. Okay. And then you have order by, group by, and all the statements. So now this becomes very big, right? So if I have to send it over the network, it is a very big command. So it can take a lot of more time. So that time, what I can do is I can put this whole set of statements into a function or a procedure. And then whenever I'm calling from the uh, application, I'll only call the procedure. I'll say run function one. Okay, so when I say run function one, this database knows what is the definition of function one, so it will run this function directly. So what is happening? I'm eliminating sending this huge number of lines every time I want to run this set of lines. So in the beginning, once I define saying, okay, so this function means you have to execute all these statements. So you run this. Okay. So that what will happen? You don't have to send this whole statement every time again and again. So this is another advantage of using stored procedures. Yeah, they reduce the traffic, they're reusable, and also stored procedures are secure. I'll tell you why they are secure. So you can give permission to a user to access a stored procedure. Okay. Show the database. So you can give a user permission to access a stored procedure, but inside a stored procedure, you can use select statements, insert statement, update statement. Okay. So like for example, if a user doesn't directly have access to a table, but you want to give him certain features, maybe he can add to the table uh, without having insert permission. So he doesn't have a direct insert permission, but he has permission to a stored procedure which internally does all these insert statements. But the insert statements are all we do a lot of check inside the procedure. So now what you can do is you can give the user permission to this stored procedure. So that way he doesn't have permission to the table, but he has a permission to the stored procedure. So now he can use this stored procedure and then insert data. Okay. So let us look at examples one by one. Before that, I'll show you what the syntax is. Okay. So we change the delimiter in the beginning. This I already told you why we are doing it. And then create instead of function, you have procedure. Okay. And then you have the name of the procedure. And then inside procedure, there are three types of uh, options that you can give for using parameters. Okay. So that is in, out, and in, out. We'll discuss what these are, and then you give the name and then you give data type. So you can give more than one also. Okay. And you don't have a return statement here. If you remember in function, we had return something that is not there in procedure, and you have a begin. You also don't have a, what do you say, return statement. You'll have end, and then you'll change the delimiter again. So let us look at one simple example. So let us say I want to, there's a procedure which will show everything from this table. Okay. What I'll do is change the delimiter, and then create procedure. Let's say procedure name is show all items. It doesn't take anything input or anything output. And then let's say begin. Then I just select star from Amazon. And sorry, and should be highlight, and then I change the delimiter to semicolon back. Okay, so it's a very simple procedure. What are we doing inside this? As you can see, I am doing the name of the create procedure is the command name. The name of the procedure is show all items. We are not taking anything input, anything output for now. It's a simple one. And then you have a begin, and then whatever is the set of statements you want inside the stored procedure, and then you have an end. Okay, so if I run this, so it is inside our company table, show all items. Okay, let me run this. Okay, so it says create procedure, show all items created. Okay, so you should be able to also see this inside here. Okay, you can see stored procedures and show all items is showing them. Okay, so how do we call a stored procedure? We say, let this code be that call and then show all items. That is the name of the procedure. Did you see what happened? So when I ran this statement, I got all of these values. Say I'm commenting it out. Okay, so if I run call show items, so it is running, right? So let's say somebody else comes and I tell him run this. So for him, he need not know what is the table underneath that is being used or anything at all. He has access to this procedure. He can run this directly. Okay. So that way we are ensuring that unwanted people don't have access to tables and it's secure. Okay. So this is a simple statement. But now you people might say, why I'm not able to, why can't I do it in function only? So in function, first of all, you need to return something and you can't have this kind of a value. I'll just show you. If I do it in function also, it will throw an error. Okay. So let's say I do, sorry, delimiter, create function. Okay. First I have to add returns. Without returns, it won't work. So let's say return, I add random returns varchar. And let's say 30, size 30. Okay. Create function show all items, begin returns getting. I think we don't have semicolon. Yeah. Begin select statement. So if I try to run this now, it will anyway show me that you have an error because it expects a return type, but not. Okay. So what is it saying? Not allowed a return, not allowed to return a result. Not allowed to return a result set from a function. So what is it saying? Because I'm doing select star from Amazon, right? So it is returning more than one value and more than one item. So it says it is not possible at all. Okay. So we also can't do update from it. Update Amazon set where let's say ID is equal to 1. So update Amazon set ID is equal to 1000 and ID is equal to 1. So if I run this, that also should say no. See? Okay, now it says no return for company function. If I do a run, that should fail again after that. Okay, we do return. Hello. Okay. It has created. Let's see if it updates. Select show all items. Okay, it does update. Okay, second, select star from Amazon. It has changed to 1000. Okay, so update will still work, but you cannot return more than one row. That should be the idea. Okay, cool. Cool. But you couldn't do select the way that I showed, right? So 1 second. This update worked, but let's say if I wanted to do a select this way, this wouldn't work. So only difference being you cannot return more than one values to it. Okay. So this is one. So now let us say I wanted to add input variables. So how we had in functions, we had the name of the variable, let's say value, not value, let's say int, no, ID, and then you would have the data type int. Okay. So if I want to do this inside stored procedure, what is the way? Okay. So stored procedures have three types of, they have a prefix that is in, out, and in out. Okay. So these are three types. So what does all three of this mean? I'll tell you. Okay. So whenever we have a function, whenever we have a procedure, let's not take procedure. So 1 second. No. In, out, in, out. So if you want to pass some values into the function, it's called in. And if you want to take some values outside of the function, okay. So these let us say I had some procedure and I want to extract some value out of it after how we used to do select star into so and so, right? So then I can use out. And if I want to take some value from inside and also give it to outside, then I use in out. Okay. how do we do this? I'll just show. So let's say I do a, so let's start from Amazon. Okay, so you have this. So let's say what we'll do is we'll create a procedure in which if you give an ID, it should return me the whole column, whole row of the product. Okay. So how do we do it? Create, we'll change the delimiter first. Delimiter, and then create procedure. Let's say we call it get item by ID. So what is the type prefix? It is in. So we only want to take input. So in name of the value, let's call it product ID. Okay. And what is data type? Its data type is int. Okay. So then we have begin. And then we say select star from Amazon where ID is equal to product ID. Okay. Then we do an end. And then we can do what we'll say the delimiter. We also have to do end here. Delimiter space. Okay. So again, very straightforward. So what we did a create procedure and we're passing it some value. Okay. And then what we are doing, we are using this value that is passed inside and we are doing a select statement. So if I run this, so this function should have been created. So if I do call get item by ID, say I do what, say 10. Okay. So now it is showing me the item that with ID 10. If I do 11, it should show me item with ID 11. Right? So this value, this we are passing it as input. Okay. So let us say I want to take out some value. Okay. Like for example, let's say I want to take out the price of given input ID. I want to take out the price of the value. Okay. So in product ID, and then I have out price. Okay. And it's decimal 10, okay. So now get product, get cost by ID. Okay. So what is that? It's called price now. Select price from Amazon where ID product into out price. Look, let's call it price of product. Okay. Into price of product. Okay. So now if I do a enter, this should create this function. Okay, so this is created. So how do we call this function now? Call and then get cost by ID. Okay, the input variable that we have is product ID, and we want to store this variable outright. So we want to get this answer from somewhere. So what we can do, if you remember, we had user-defined variables, right? So how do we specify them? We say at, and then we say name of the variable. Let's say I call it price. Okay. So when I run this, what happens is one is sent as input to the product, input to the function, and whatever is coming out, it is stored into this price variable. Okay. So if I do enter, no data 0 is vector. That's okay, fine. So now it has not done anything, but I'll have the value of my value of the product ID 1 in price. Okay. I think there is no product ID with 1. So let's say I do 10 and then I do a control enter. Okay. Yeah. So with 10 there is a product. So if I do select, how do we see user defined variable? We do select at the rate and then whatever is the name of the variable, price. Okay, so you can see, right? So what is happening? The price 399 is coming, it is showing to me what is the value, right? So this is in and this is out. So what is another thing with, you could have said, why do I want to take, uh, let's say, what if I wanted to find some items price without doing this out? Can I store it inside this only? Let's say I do in and then do it. Okay. So in I do and then I do product cost. Okay. And then I say what product cost decimal 10,2. Okay. So if I do select price from ID, let's say is 10 into product cost. Okay. So let's say I run get cost by ID, I call it in, and then let's say I run this. Okay, so this has created a function, but now let's say I set we are doing at price, no? So let's say I'll do set at price is equal to let's say I set it to 1. Okay, so now you can see select at price, if I do it will give me 1 only. Okay, let's say I put it inside this function, and as I'm thinking, since I've taken it as product cost and select price from Amazon where I did it, put it into product cost. So will this work? Let's see. Okay. So let's say I do call, because there's a procedure, get cost by ID in, and then I do at price. Okay. So whatever is the value of at price, I take it. Okay. So I've done this. Now let's do, if I do select at price, what does it show? It is still showing 1. Okay. But if you see what is the price of the item whose ID is 10, sorry, not this. The price is 399, right? But even though the price is 399, if I run get cost by ID in price, and if I take out, it still shows me 1 only. Why is this showing me 1? Because if you see, I've taken the variable as in. So what in means is that whatever update you do here, whatever you modify here, whatever you do here, no, it will only stay inside this. Once it comes out, it will be same what was before this function. Okay, like for example, let us say I'll show you another example what I mean. So let's say I'll do this one, and I'm doing this. Let's say I do select uh, hmm, product cost. Okay, as it's okay, product cost. This should work. So I'm just printing the product cost. So if I run this function now, to get price by ID 1 is done. So if I print this, it doesn't print anything here. Get cost by ID in, okay, 1, sorry, 1 is missing. Okay. So whatever is the product price that I'm printing inside, right here. So I call this function. So in this function, what happened? We got the product cost as input variable. So what was the input variable before? So if I show that also to you, select at the rate price. Okay, so if I run this, the input variable is 1. Okay, so we are passing inside, we are passing the product cost as 1. And then what we're doing, call get cost by ID in 1. Okay, so when I run this, you see the product cost. I'm doing a select product cost, and it is changing to what? 399. Okay, but afterwards, now this function has run. Now again, if I do at the rate price, right, the price becomes 1 only. Okay, so what is happening? So what you're doing is we are taking whatever is the value of the product cost initially one, right? So you do any modification here, but once it comes out of this function, it will again be one only. Why? Because I've said the type of this variable is in. In means it can only give the value inside. Whatever happens to this value inside this, once I come out of that function, it will still be whatever was before this. Like let's say this is 1 point, this is 1 point. So before this point, it is one. Okay. So here you do whatever you want. Kuch bhi karo. You increase it by +10, you increase it by -10, you do whatever you want. But once you come out of it, what was the value before? One. So it will still be one only. Okay. So this is what happens if you say in. The variable type is in. But instead of giving in, if I would have given this out, okay. So let's say I do it 2 and then I do out. Okay. So now if I create this function, okay. Now if I do initially select price is what? Select price is 1. Okay. But if I run this function in which I have specified out, get cost by ID in 2, and then I say at the rate price. So I'm passing this variable. So inside it printed 399. Outside also it will be 399. Select at the rate price. Say I remove this for confusion. So now if I print price, it is printing 399. Okay. Why is it printing 399? So for out variable, so initially it was 1, it doesn't matter. So whatever modification you do here, so here I modified it to 399. Okay. So when it comes out, whatever was the last value after modifying, right? So that will only be the answer. So that is 399. Why? Because I specified the variable as, got it? So and I also can't use this into, let's say I did out product cost. I'll initially say product cost to be, so it is like this. You can't use whatever you specified as out inside this condition where this and all that. So you can't use that also because it is out. So if you want to use something in both in and out, you specify by saying in out. Okay. So if something you have specified saying in out, no, then it will work. Okay. For like example, uh, let's say I have a simple function where we do create procedure in out example, and I take sorry in out let's say count. Okay, I've given it count and it is of type integer. I do begin select. I'll do select count. So what I'm doing, I'm printing whatever is the count here. Select count as value. Statement is okay. Okay. Fine. Got it. Delimiter. And okay. So then what I do, set count is equal to count plus 1. Okay. And then I'll again do select count and then I do end. So end with there is a delimiter, single delimiter. So what have I done here? So I've taken one variable called count and then I'm printing the count first. I'm incrementing the count. I'm again printing the count and we'll also check what will be the value once it comes out. Okay. So let us say I had I do enter in out example. So now if I do, sorry, let's say set the rate count is equal to initially let's say count is 10. Okay, so count we are set to 10. Then I pass inside this function inside in out example at the rate count. Okay. You see it is printing 11. I think it overrides one after the other. Same select statement is put. First, this is getting written, return this is getting written. Okay, but you can see right at the end what is printed. At the end, 11 is printed. So what we did, we incremented the count and we printed 11. And also, if you see what is the current value of count, right? It will also be 11. Okay, so it is 11, right? So why once I modified this value, I used it as input and then I modified it again, it still worked. How did it work? Because I used it as in out. Okay, so let us I take out example. I do out and let's see what happens if I try to read it. Okay, out count. Just do select count. Will we be able to read it? So I did this out example. So enter, we've done this. What is the value of count? Correct. Currently selected the rate count is what 11. Okay. So call out example rate count. See, what is it showing? It is showing null. So why is it showing null? Because I am taking it as out. So the type is out here. I cannot read the value which came with this in the beginning. I can only put it out. So uh, so now this is showing null now, and also if I do at the rate count rate, it will be same. It doesn't matter. At the rate select count, it should also become null now. Because inside this, I took it comes as a fresh value. I didn't set it to anything. That is why it became null. Okay. But if I would have done this set count is equal to 5. So what would happen? Count would become 5 and I would have got it outside. Okay. So the basic idea is, so if you want to only read from a variable and not want it outside fully, you use in. Okay. And if you don't want any modifications for it to happen outside the function, out you use if you want to get some value from the function. Okay. If you want to get some value from the function, you use out. Okay. And when do you use in-out? If I want to also take input to the function and update that value when it's going out of the function, then I use in-out. So you have understood what is in-out and all. So let us try to do insert and update commands also inside of this, inside a procedure. Okay. So we had an example stored procedure tutorial. Use stored proc. So if it's there, we had the statements also. Yep. So this we already discussed. So what is this doing? We are doing a simple select star command from everything. Okay. So if I run this, so this tables and all have already been created. If it's a student marks is a table that is created and it has you do select star from student marks. So you see already this is already created. Okay. So if I create this function, nothing fancy here. Create procedure is normal. Name of the function, begin, end, and then the statement that you want. Okay. Very simple one. So if now if I do call get student data, it should show whatever is okay. Nothing fancy. Now let us go one step further and try. There is also an example with in. Okay. So this kind of function also we have seen. So what we are doing here, this also fine. So what we are doing, we are giving an input to the function to the procedure, and what is the input? The input is student ID. Okay. So now what this should show? This should show me all the details where the student ID matches this STU ID in the table. Okay. Let's run this. Now if you do call sp get student name, so I do there were the 5 people. Okay, so say 5. So now it shows all the details about the student with 5. Okay, so an example of in. Now let us look at an example of out. Okay. So so let us say we wanted to get average marks of every student in the class. So then what we would do? and we want it out of the procedure. So what we are doing that time is the input type is out. You can see it is out here, and then you have the name of the variable, and then you have the data type of the variable, and then you have the query. The query is simple. We are doing a function, this function, average function, and average is getting the average of total marks, and we're storing it into student marks. Okay, so if I run this will create it. If I do call sp get average marks, since I'm not passing any input, but I still need an output. So output, what we'll do, we'll create it here directly. So if you do at and then write anything here, it creates here directly. Okay. So let's say at average marks. Okay. This will if I enter one row affected data truncated. It's okay, fine. So now if I do, this is stored inside this value now. I can do select at EV average marks, and if I run this, see, it is showing the average marks like 323.6. So that if I do this also, it should tell me this. That should also see. Undefined, okay, ये नहीं करना है. 320. Both are one and the same, right? So you see one thing. This can also be created with a function. So because here we are only using one out variable, this can also be created with a function, right? Because function anyway returns one variable, and then you can create a function and do the same thing as well. Okay, so can you guys do one thing? I want you people to write a similar function for this one. So not create procedure, write a create function which does the same thing. Okay, so I'll paste this code. You guys can make use of it and quickly modify if you want to. What all, at least tell me what all will change. Okay. Okay. So, did you guys try it? Because whatever we require, right? All of them are same only. How would I do this? You ask me. So create function, and I would say sp get average marks. Let's say call it function. So I don't need any input variable because I'm doing the out. So just I'll do this, and then inside I say returns average average returns not average returns decimal of size 5, comma 2. Okay, this is done. Then I would do begin from here. Begin again. We have to declare a variable here. So I would do declare because I need to store this average into something, right? Declare average and name the variable. Let us say average is a function. Sorry, average and decimal 5, comma 2, and same. This function should. This statement is the same, and then what will I do? I'll do return average and let's say the delimiter also I want to create. इसको पूरा कमेंट करते हैं. ये चाहिए हमको delimiter, and then I do a delimiter, and then we say we change the delimiter to colon. Okay. So what have we done? If you see difference from this and this, so create procedure, create function, name of the function is same. So because I cannot use out inside a function. Function can only have input variables. You can't do out inside a function. Okay. So since function can only have input variables and I wanted one output variable, so what I did, I added this to return directly. Okay. So this is the function. It returns decimal. And then now because here what was happening, I had a variable already coming in. So here I don't have any variable coming in. So I have to declare one variable of my own. I've declared it as average, and I'm doing storing that into student marks, into average, and then I'm returning it. Okay. So whereas here what we're doing, I was directly storing it into this average that I had got from here, and I was not doing anything else. But both do the same thing. Let us say I run this. Okay, so this should be created. So it says special get function marks created. So now if I do set, I can do select sp get average average marks fn. Okay, so if I do this, so 323.64, right? So this is also giving me the same thing. And if I do the direct call, so this is not returning. So what I have to do is I have to myself store it in some variable. Let's say I call it avg1. Okay, so storing it in this. Now if I do select at the rate avg1, shows the same thing, right? So you see what are the differences? The differences being very minute. The function should have a return value. If you want output, the function cannot have them in the function parameters. It has to have a return type. Okay, but function cannot do this thing. So let's say I had a procedure. So this procedure, let's call it get average marks and max marks. So then I could create two variables: out average decimal, out maximum, and this is also decimal 52. And then what I would do is I would average, I'll select put into average, and then I'll do select max of total marks into maximum from student marks. Okay. So here what you can see is I'm adding two out variables. Average is one, maximum is one. Let us run this. So this has been created. So if I do call at the rate maximum, at the rate average avg1, and at the rate max1. Okay. So what I've done basically, I've got two variables, two output variables from here. So from this procedure, I was able to get two values out, avg1 and max1. So if I do select at the rate avg1, comma, at the rate max1, so you can see, right? So avg and max, I'm able to see both. Average is 323 and max is 490. But I cannot do the same thing with a function. Why? Because a function can have only one return value. I can either get average or I can get maximum. I can't get both average and maximum. Because why? Because function has only one return type, one return value. Okay, cool. So I'll stop for a while. Anybody has questions? Okay, fine. We will move ahead. I have some other examples. So this is with INOUT. They've done the same thing what we did. Okay, counter is counter plus one. Cool. So let us say we wanted to use define variables inside a procedure. So if you remember, we were defining variables inside a function, right? Declare and all. So that can be done in the procedure also. So if you see here, it is named as so it is doing count of below average students. Okay, so it is returning with the value of count of below average students. How are you doing it? First, we are declaring a variable value called average marks. Okay, and then what I'm doing, I'm using this average marks, and I am what do you say? I'm doing a get of this average marks into this value, and then I'm doing the same using the same value, and I'm checking where clause. Okay, so what we're doing, first get me the average marks and store it into this variable called average marks, and then count all the people whose and store them into below average value such that their total marks is less than the average marks. Okay, so what we're doing here, we're declaring one variable. Uh, this is functional variable that is declared inside a function or a procedure. It is not one of the. It is not the one that is coming, passing into or going out. Okay. So if I run this, so now if I do call sp count average, so I say at average people. Okay. If I do select at the rate people, you can see it says 5 people. So there are 5 people who have marks which is less than the average. Okay, so basically what we did, we declared one more variable inside the procedure only and then used it in some other condition or in some other select statement. Okay, cool. So we can also use all the other things that we used in a function. We can use if else if, we can use case statement, we can use while loop, you can use for, you can use loop, you can use repeat until. So all of those are possible. Okay, we have another example where we're using if else if. Okay, so if you take this example, so you see here, right? So one second, let me make it slightly smaller. Something done. Okay. So what is this function? This function is doing, we are taking a student value, his ID, and then we are checking, we are giving a Boolean value saying, is the student above average or below average? Okay. So how are we doing it? We declare average marks and we declare student marks. So these are two variables that we have declared. And then first we take the average marks. How are we doing it? Because this we already done. Count the average of all the values. Okay. And then we are taking the marks of one student into this student marks. Okay. So then we are doing this if else if. Okay. So if student marks is greater than average marks, then set it to true or else set it to false. Okay. And because this is in the out parameters, so this is written directly. This is in the way in the function parameter integer, so you don't have to return it. It's out value is stored. Okay. So if it is greater than average marks, it is set to true, and if it is less, it is set to false. Okay. So let's run this, save this. And then if I run this, so let us initially check one student. Okay. So let's say select star from put student marks. Now student marks. Okay, so you see one is above average, right? One has got 450. Average was somewhere 320, 330. So if I do call and then function get is above average, the ID is 1. And then I say at the rate store it into is above average. So it has executed. If I do select at the rate is above average, it should return true. It should show me true. Okay. It is giving 1, right? So 1 means true and 0 means false. Okay. So it is telling us it is true. Right? So this else if you can use for anything. I'm setting a Boolean value here. You can set it to a, what do you say? What you can set it to a string value. You can set it to anything that you want. Okay. So this is one example. And also you can call one stored procedure inside another stored procedure. Okay. So there is one example for that as well. Okay. So we already created get is above average, right? So let us say we had one more function which says if the student has passed or failed. So for that, what we will do, we will take this. I'll show you what is this function. So if you see, right, what this function is doing, So few things, we are taking student ID inside and then we are returning the result. So result is a string. You can see from varchar. So it just says pass or fail. So how are we doing this? So we are doing a call. We are calling this function that we had already, this procedure we had already created, right? So get is above average was already created, and then we are storing it inside this is above average user variable. Okay. So this variable is then later on used. If it is true, if it is zero, then say student is fail. If it is else, say student is passed. Okay. So what we are doing, one stored procedure is used inside another bigger stored procedure. Okay. So if I do enter, and then if we say call get student result, okay, let's say one, and then enter it as I'll store it as result. Okay. If I do this, this should have been succeeded. This succeeded. So if I say select at the rate result, it should tell me pass. Okay. So if I let's say we pick somebody who has done badly, select star from student marks. Say we have this guy, 250. So his ID is 7. So if I do 7, then if I do enter, and if I do select result, it should say fail. Right? It is saying fail. Why is it saying fail? So we called this function. This function gave us above average 0. Okay. Since we got 0 for above average, we set the result as fail. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that you can use if else statements, and you can also call another function, another procedure inside a what? Inside a procedure. You can also call a function inside this. So let us say I had one function that just gave me what? Let's say I had a function which just was giving me count of total number of students. So that can also be used. So it is not compulsory that you can only use a stored procedure inside a stored procedure. You can also use a function inside a stored procedure. Okay. So I've also done this example. I don't think there is any other example. Okay. So you have if else. Okay. So that is also, so this was if else. So let's say you wanted an example for if else. Okay. So what is this doing? This is using same thing, but it is using a bigger if statement. So if Mars is greater than 4,000, set the class to first class. Else if Mars is greater than 300 and less than 400, then set it to second class. Else set it to fail. And similarly, we have same variables. So we are taking the student ID as input, and we are returning class is a class. Class is a type of variable. It's a varchar, and then we are getting the total marks from this input student ID, and then we're doing if statement. Okay, so you can also use a case statement here. You can also use a loop statement. Okay, so all of these are possible. 1 second now. I'll stop here for a while. If people want to ask anything, any doubts, anybody has anything to say? Okay, no, then we will continue. So let's try doing insert and update. 1 minute. Okay. So let's try doing insert and update. So you can not just do select, you can do insert and update also. So let's say I create so this table, right? So select star from student marks. So say this ID total marks grade. So let's say I create an insert command, insert into student class values. And then we have let's say we will keep these names as variable. Let's say I'll call this ID, call this marks, I'll call this grade. Okay. So now I can put this inside a stored procedure also. So how would I do that? Create stored procedure, and then we'll have the input variables in ID in marks in grade. Okay, so grade is varchar size 5. Marks are int. ID is also int. Okay. So I do a create stored procedure like this, and then we do begin. Then we'll just call this. Then I say end. This is removed. Okay. So stored spelling is wrong. Nahin na? It is not stored procedure. Sorry, it's called create procedure. It is called stored because it is called stored because these are stored inside the DB, right? So that's why they're called stored procedures. Limiter, let's say it's equal to and create procedure. Name of the procedure is insert into student. Okay. So let us say begin and is there. This needs a this delimiter set t. Okay, so this is created. So now let's say every time you want to insert into students, right? You don't have to write the whole statement and all. So what you can do that time is let's say select not select call insert into student. So you can directly specify what you want. You want to insert his ID, let's say 30, and marks are 300, and grade is B plus. Okay. So if I do an enter, so this guy has been inserted. If I do select star from student marks, so you can see there should be a person with ID number 30, right? So 3300 B plus. So he has been inserted properly. Correct? Right. So you can insert is done. So you can also do update similarly. Update student. Let's say I want to update student marks. Okay. Update student marks. So I call this what I do update student marks set what is the row name? The row name is total marks. Set total marks is equal to total marks is equal to marks and not comma grade is equal to let's say call it something input grade updated grade is equal to updated grade where student ID is equal to ID. Okay, so we created this function. So I do enter. This function should be created. And then if we do call update student marks. Okay, so let's say we had the first guy, rule number 1, he got 500 marks actually. The grade was supposed to be A plus. If I do enter, and if you do again select star from student marks, it should show. See, the first guy's roll number has his marks have been updated to 500 and he has got A plus. So we can use stored procedures for this as well. You can also do a delete. Okay, so delete is also possible. So let us say you wanted to do a, let's say we want to use a loop inside a stored procedure. Okay, so how we'll do that? So let's say we have a table. Um, let's say the table name is, you say, let us call it, let's call it even numbers table. Okay, so create table even numbers. Then we do let's say value int. Okay. this much is our table. So initially, if you see even numbers, let's start from even numbers. See, there is nothing. Okay. So we'll create a stored procedure. So in that, if you give it some value, it will insert even numbers between those values. Okay. So let's say create procedure, insert even numbers. Okay. And then let's say we have two in variables, in start, okay, and in end. Start and end are keywords. Sorry. In, let's say I'll call it S and in E. Okay. So what this procedure will do is, if you give me any value, a value start and end. So starting from this value, I'll insert all even numbers inside the table. Okay. So will we do it? Let's say I do begin. So we are supposed to use while. Okay. So let's say I declare. Okay. So I can use the start anyway, right? So let's say what I do. Begin. Let's say we'll call it label one, while it should be similar like this one, right? 1 second. So if you go back to a while statement. Okay. While, okay, label one while. Okay. So while s is less than or equal to e. Okay. So as long as less than it is less than or equal to e, do this. Do is corrected. So I have do. So then what we do is, if s mod 2 is equal to what is equal to 0, then insert into your numbers values say s. Okay. Else set s is equal to s plus 1. Okay. This also I'll do this delimiter star star. Okay, so else sets. So we'll do end if, and then say we also say this much only, as long. So what this will come out whenever s becomes equal to e. Okay. So then what we do is we'll say end while. I think we have to specify the loop value. End while a label one. Okay, label. This is our I've done this, and let's say I do reset the delimiter. Okay, so let me repeat again. So what is happening inside this function? So we have taken two variables. Uh, one is s and one is e. Okay, their data type int, int. Okay, so both are of type integers. So what we will do is we will insert all the numbers between s and e, which are even numbers. Okay, into this table, even numbers table. And if you, okay. So how are we doing that? So we start the while loop as long as s is less than e. If s is divisible by 2, then add it into even numbers table. Okay, so we are doing s here. Else what we do, increase value of s. Okay, so this if completes, again it goes back, repeats the same thing. Okay, so let us say I run this function, I create this function. Okay, so you created this function now. If I do call and let's say insert even numbers between what 10 and 20, including 10 and 20. Okay, so because it starts from that. So if I do this, it is taking time to run, I think. While s is less than or equal to e, Set S is S plus 1, S1, 2. 1 second. I think we went into a, what do you say, um, infinite loop condition. Hmm. Lost connection to MySQL server. Yeah. 1 second. I think I know what the issue is. Declare I is int default is. Now if I do I 1 plus 1, okay, so let's say insert even numbers 1. Call this. Hmm. So this has been created. It's already created. Okay, fine. So now let's see if I do this, set 1 in this. And then okay, even now it is failing. Yeah, 1 second. As long as okay, sorry. This condition should be I. 1 second. Again, ये फट जाएगा. Call it 2. I is I plus 1. I is less than. So I is less than or equal to E. Okay. Hmm, okay. Let me do this again. If it has been created, now let's say if I do 2 and call this, now it should work. अभी नहीं चल रहा है. If I mod 2 is 0, then insert into even numbers, else set I is I plus 1. And if 1 second. Why is this not running? Okay. Got it. So if you see, whenever I mod 2 is 0, right, we are inserting it into the values, but we are never increasing it. So like, for example, if I give 10 to it, initially it is 10. After that, it will never increase only. It keeps repeating, right? Let's see what happened to our table. So if I to select, all 10 should be there inside the table. Now select R from even numbers. From, देखो, yeah, ये चलता ही रहेगा ऐसे ही. I think it should end after some time. If I do a count, select count star from your numbers. देखो, ये चल ही रहा है. क्यों चल रहा है? क्योंकि हमने एक while loop में इनको चला दिया. This is increasing again and again. Not sure how we can stop this. Okay. I'm also not sure how to stop. So what has happened is I created this function, I created this procedure, but what we have forgotten is we have forgotten to add a condition inside this only. So if the value is odd, it is increasing, but if the value is even, it is never increasing. So what is happening? The functions are running, so this value is getting increased every time, right? So let us create another table and do this. At least other table it should not affect. Okay. So how do we create another table? Let's say even numbers once I call it. Okay. Create table even num. Okay. Say it has ID and it has int काफी. So a table create हो गया. Inside this, instead of even numbers, I'll do even num. Okay. And what we have to do is set I is equal to I plus 1. Should fix it now. So what we're not incrementing the value because other it is failing. Let's call this insert even numbers 3. Everything else should be fine. Okay, so this function is created. Okay, so now when I do ये सब निकाल लेते हैं. Insert even numbers 3. Okay, so it should say 5, 6 numbers inserted. Okay, it has inserted. So let us just see now. Okay. So if I do select star from even num, okay. Oh, ये भी 10 10 ही डाल रहा है क्या? क्यों? Oh, again, sorry. We are adding s. We are supposed to add I. I'm doing a lot of mistakes. 4 कर दिया, ये हो गया 4. अब सही चलना चाहिए. If I do 4 here, first we'll delete everything from even number. Delete from even number. We are using safe, okay. Where ID is equal to 10. सारे 10 ही है ना, तो सारे डिलीट हो जाएंगे. अरे ये क्या बोल रहा है? Try to update a table. Save update mode. Key column. एक सेकेंड ना. I think there is a way to disable save update mode. Disable save update safe mode. I do. Okay. So सारे के सारे डिलीट हो गए. Now if I do a select star from even num, कुछ नहीं होगा. और अब ये फंक्शन चलाएंगे. ये फंक्शन 4 होनी चाहिए. 4. So when I ran this, is one row updated. Now if I do select star from even num, so you can see, right? So we have added 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Correct? So few things that the only mistake we did was all of this was correct. We had forgotten to add I is equal to I plus 1. Okay, this S should also work. I thought it was the issue, but if I do this, right, label 1, where S is less than S, is also S, S is S plus 1, S is S plus 1, S is S plus 1, S is S plus 1. Okay, this should still work. It should not cause any issues. So if I do insert 5, okay, if you see anything, no S, 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 okay. अगर मैं इसको चलाता हूँ और फिर 5 करके, say I want to add between 100 and 200. Okay, so it has added. So now if I do a select star from even num, it should have, you can see, right, there are values between 20, 100 to 200, all have been added. Okay, so you can use even while loop and repeat also inside create procedures. Okay. This is it. If you go back to slide, I just want to see, suppose we alter a new column in the existing table, then how can we insert each row? What do you mean by this? So let us say you change the column, so valid question. So let's say I had this, okay? Like for example, I create a new table, let's assume, okay? No, same table. So it is select star from, what is the table name? Even num. Okay, so it's a table key ID, the name is ID. But let us say I change its value to something else. Here I have not given the ID name, but let's say I create a function. So this is with ID, and I create one function with the way which what it does is create a procedure. It doesn't take anything to begin, and then what it does is select ID from even num. Okay, very simple procedure, and I do end. Okay, so create procedure, name the procedure is print ID. It's called print ID, and इसको हटाते हैं. I do delimiter. The delimiter is and I do and then I do delimiter. Okay, so I've done this much. So very simple. So this will work. No issues with this. So if I do print ID, call print ID, it will work seamlessly. Okay. But let us say I change the column name only from the table. Alter table even num, even num, modify, rename column, is that right? Rename column, uh, let's say ID to ID1. Okay. So now if I do a select star from even num, you should see it shows ID1. Okay. So now what happens if I run this function? This function will fail saying it is not able to find the ID. Okay. Print ID. See, it is saying, right? So what I was saying, so in case you modify any column name in the function, in the table, one second, one, not able to see this. Okay. So if you modify any column name in the table, right, you can't, the function won't work. So then what you have to do is you have to delete this function and then create a new function only. So for functions, there is no way to, let's say you created this function print ID, right? You cannot modify the, one second, I'm audible, right? To people? Yeah, okay. You can, okay, fine. So you cannot modify the function definition and all. The function has to be deleted only and then created. So the deleting function is again very simple. Drop print ID, drop procedure. Okay. So this will drop the function print ID. Then what I have to do is I'll have to update this function again, select ID to ID1, and enter. This function is created. And then again, I do call print ID1. Print ID only. Okay, okay, fine. Print ID. So now this works again, right? So if you do any modification in between if to the table and if the function is still there and if it is referring to the value like this, it will fail. But instead, if it was referring like this, right, select star from even num, so then it wouldn't fail. Like if I can show that also to you, drop procedure print ID. So I think I'm using function and procedure interchangeably a lot of times. So please pardon me. We are only discussing about क्या हुआ ड्रॉप प्रोसीजर प्रिंट आईडी में ये सब ओके हटाता हूँ क्यों check the manual okay sorry so now I can create this like this start from given num so ये हो गया create so if I do call print id so this should work okay and now even if I modify the function table so let's say I do alter table even num rename column id1 to id2 so let's say I've done more renaming, but this function will still work. Why it is working? Because if you see here, instead of specifying a column name, what I did was I became more generic. I'm doing star. So this is like saying whatever is a column, print it. Okay. So this way you don't have to rechange the update the procedure every time something changes. Okay. So you can do this. Cool. I think we covered much. Let me go through the slides. Let's see if we're missing something. Okay. How many people are there? Yes. 10, 12. Cool. So we discussed about pre-procedures are again pre-compiled statements. It is a program, regular computing language. It contains a name, list of parameters, in and out, and SQL statements. SQL statements are what we discussed. It can contain if, it can contain select, it can contain update, it can contain delete, all of them. Okay. So why we use this? Because there are some places where you want to run multiple statements at the same time. So that time what you can do, you can directly call a procedure instead of writing all the statements again and again. Okay. And we also discussed about the features of a stored procedure. Syntax, you start with the delimiter. You say create procedure and then you have the name of the procedure. And then you have the variable types. There are 3 types, in, out, in, out. So you can have any of these 3 based on the use case. In is whenever you want to only read the values and don't want any changes to happen outside the procedure. Out is you want some value which is being created inside the procedure to be used outside of the procedure. Okay, that time you use out. So in out is somewhere where you are passing the value and you also want the updated value inside the function to come out. So that time use in out. Okay. So begin, end, and whatever is the, if you want to use any function definitions, you do declaration and then you execute afterwards. Okay. There's the same thing again. In out and default in is the default one. So if you don't specify anything, it should take in only. Okay. And then, yeah, whatever you discuss, the same thing is there. How to call a stored procedure, we discussed it. So call and then the name of the procedure and then, sorry, whatever is the input name, the input parameters, output parameters, you specify inside the function name. Okay. Then, so I have added some examples that are there. So you can, I'll share the PPT, you can just have a look at them. Similar to what you have discussed. If you see, we are doing, we are printing here, select star, and we're doing select count and all. So we're printing here, and then, so I've given an example with in. So it within whatever is the value, var1, say you're checking limit variable students. So I'll not cover this because you already done. So how to show list of, how to show what all are the procedures that are there in your database. So you use this command, show procedure status, where DB is this. So you can check by DB or you can check if name matches anything. So in our case, DB is what? Stored proc tutorial. Stored proc, क्या था? Show procedure status where DB error क्यों दिखा रहा है? Is not validated. Okay, I got it. So ये इसका issue है. Right. If I run this, क्या error दिखा रहा है? Unknown column DB in where clause. DB database आनी चाहिए क्या? No. Wait. Let's just show procedure status. Okay. So you see, it has all the procedures. Definer ID. Okay, it's capital D and B. Where DB is equal to stored procedure tutorial. Q unknown column DB in where clause. Not sure why it is showing, but it's okay. Let's say I do. So you can see all the procedures that are defined. They have been created separately. And you can also use like command. So if you see like and whatever is the pattern that you want, that also can be done. And then delete and drop procedure. If exists, you can use if exists to say if it is not existing, don't do anything. Then, so I discussed about altering a procedure. So you can't change a lot of things. You can't change the definition for sure, but you can change some things like, how would you say, characteristics, and you can change comments of the procedure. So like, for example, so say these are all changeable. Comment is changeable. This language contains SQL, no SQL, modifies SQL data. So these are characteristics. This is also characteristics. So these can be changed, but you can't change anything else. Okay. Then, so what are the drawbacks? So everything is not good, right? So there can be issues with whatever, all the things that we do have issues also, right? So one is it's very difficult to debug. So like just now we had this example where we were doing update, right? Where we're adding items into the table enum number. So there sometimes you don't have logs and all for the stored procedures and all. That's why it becomes very difficult to debug and all. Okay, and then the implementation of stored procedure is different in different databases. So here you saw MySQL. We saw for MySQL. So it is not necessary that it will be same for other databases as well. So it will slightly be different. So it is difficult to port these functions from these procedures from one database to another database. Okay, so they can be less since they're pre-compiled and easily. So you cannot modify these at runtime. So once these are created, they are always there. You can't change anything. That is okay. And then they're also vulnerable to injection attacks. So what are SQL injection attacks? So let us say I created a function here. Currently, we deal all SQL injection attacks, but let us say the it had in, and then I was taking some character as input. Okay, so let us say it was let's call it value val, and it was of type varchar. Okay, so varchar let's say I give the size of 100. Okay, so every time I cannot be sure that the input value that is coming can come from the end user also, right? So let us say he's an end user. Um, like if I give an example, so let's say I have a function get. I am a bank and I have a function get account get balance, and inside I'll give user ID as the input. Okay, so let's assume one user can give this user ID. So what let's say the user will do. So in get balance, I've written a function call, not call, create procedure get balance. Okay, all of this is there, and then I've written some SQL queries. Select star from where where user ID is equal to whatever is the user ID that is passed to me. Okay, so but let us assume what happens is the the consumer was a malicious user. So then what he can do is instead of passing, so if I was there, I would pass Guru Prasad as my user ID. Okay, and if somebody else was there, they'll pass who do we take? Say Kaniraj is there. Okay, so Kaniraj will pass Kaniraj as ID. But what if assume somebody else was a very bad guy? So instead of passing Kaniraj, no, so he selected he entered delete star from, let's say somehow he got to the table name. The table name was accounts. Okay, delete uh, star delete from account. So let's assume that person instead of passing the user ID, he passed this. Okay, like this. So then what will happen? Now we'll run like this. Select star from account where user ID is equal to this ho jayega. Okay. So now user ID has become this. So here it is not running correctly, but it can happen that what if this function, this query execute internally, and while doing a get details, what the user did, the user inserted some random commands and created what do you say? The user inserted some random command and he deleted our whole account table only. Right? This is possible. This can happen, right? So it used to happen in 80s and 90s. So that time SQL injection attacks were very prevalent, but now they have all been solved. You wouldn't find normal SQL injection attacks happening on databases and all. Okay. And then sometimes they can decrease the performance because you might do a lot of calculations. They can't be called with non-DBMS client. You need a special driver to interact with, to directly call procedures. Yeah, they also are difficult to test because they're tightly coupled with the databases. Okay, so what is the difference between function and the stored procedure? Okay, so we have so far seen a lot of things, right, about function and procedure. So function has a return type, whereas a stored procedure doesn't have a return type. But you can mimic return type using out parameters. Okay, so you cannot use a function with data manipulation queries. Only select queries are allowed, but I'm not sure how it worked there. The definition says that only. Okay, but you can use insert, update, delete, and all queries inside procedures. Okay, function does not allow output parameters. Procedure allows both output and input. Function doesn't allow transactions inside. So I'll tell you what transactions are, but function doesn't allow transactions, whereas procedures allow transaction. You cannot call a stored procedure from a function, but you can call a stored function from a procedure. You can call a function. So a function is called using a select. It can be called using a select statement, whereas procedures cannot be called using select statement. You have to call procedures with call command only. Okay. So I have other examples. I think enough for today. This will again take a lot of time. You guys can have a look at them, see what we're doing in the functions. We'll continue in the next class, views and all. I'll stop for now. People who have doubts, you can ask doubts.